welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like, and please share it with your friends. So today what are we going to do? I've got a Biltmore hat on right now. It's a Canadian made fedora. It's kind of cool, and at least I think it is. And I'm going to be reassembling a very old Hamilton pocket watch. So stay tuned and watch the work. So before I start the reassembly, this is the Bridezilla, the bride of the Watchzilla pocket watch. I've been running it for a couple days. It's keeping exceptional time, which I really like. So it's almost ready to be shipped out again. So this is the one that came back and that I had to do some work on. I had to loosen the cannon pinion, which loosened up the actual setting of the watch, which was very nice. And I did other things to it. Oh, there's a jewel that needed to be dealt with, the loose jewel that I unloosened. I tightened it up. Anyway, the impulse jewel, put that back in, and it's running really well. So this is the Bride of Watchzilla. All right, here I've got the watch parts in a cage. I think in the last video I cleaned the watch, and we're going to just take this watch out of the cage and get on with the work. Alrighty then, here's the watch, and it is in the basket right now. So we have to take the parts out of the basket. And what I do when I do this, and I have it in a basket that is the complete basket. There you go, from Pearl. So this is the watch cleaning machine. I have Pearl, 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 you are my darling girl. I probably am not supposed to sing that song. You know what? I bet you the rights people, copyright people, are going to send me a notice because I sang that song, right? That song was supposed to be sung by somebody from the Beverly Hillbillies many, many moons ago. So many, many moons ago. Just trying to get the baskets out. This is the second set of baskets I have. This one's a little tighter in here, I think, than the other one. So I've got the mainspring that I've got to get back in the barrel. Here it is here. That's the mainspring. And it's ready to go, and it's a T mainspring, and here's the barrel itself. And I've got a barrel cover in here somewhere. And here is one of the plates. I'm just going to put everything on the mat so it's kind of, I'm able to get at it. I put it kind of above me. So this stuff has been sitting here drying for quite some time. A week to be exact. So it's got plenty of dry time, which is nice. So there's the barrel cover, just fell out. There we go. That's one basket almost empty. There's a Arbor here. That's the barrel Arbor. It's a pretty big barrel Arbor. And then I just put this back into the basket. So that's that. Now I'm going to grab a couple of wheels here. And there, this is the third wheel. This is the fourth, or this is the center wheel here. And I've got some stuff in the baskets. So I'm going to just get these open. Usually I have the smaller stuff that I put in the basket so they don't get bent around, like don't move around a lot and possibly get bent. So, and there's the fourth wheel. That's where the pivot is. A little close up of the fourth wheel for you here. That's the fourth wheel and the fourth wheel pivot. All nice and clean. And I'll have a look at that pivot on the end. It looks like there's some brown stuff on it, but this went through the cleaner. So, and there's the escape wheel. I've been corrected by somebody. Escape wheel, because the escapement includes the balance cock, the balance, the escape wheel, all that stuff. So I listen to the people that watch my channel, obviously. And then the other basket, can't remember what's in it, but I'm going to open it up and have a look. And it has stuff. So it has the ratchet wheel, which is right here. And it's looking pretty good. And it's got the ratchet wheel cover, or the small plate on the ratchet wheel. I think that's what that is. And then then I've got the screw for the ratchet wheel, which is usually the bigger of the two screws, unless I'm mistaken. And then I have the crown wheel and its cover, and another screw. And the threading is different between the ratchet wheel screw and the crown wheel screw. So I think the ratchet wheel screw is the smaller screw, and the crown wheel one looks like it could be the bigger screw. So we'll just leave them like this for now, and then grab it and then put it aside so it doesn't get harmed in any way. So what you got to make sure is that you've got everything out of the way, and that's everything out of here. And I often just dump this, and you don't want to be missing parts. That's not good. If you try to reassemble a watch and you're missing parts, you're screwed, as they say in Scotland. You're screwed. So here I've got a ton of parts. May have to put my glasses on for this. All right, the department of ton of parts. So I've got the bridge for the balance for the pallet fork here. It's quite a fancy dancy bridge for the pallet fork. I like this bridge. It's nice. Bridge for the pallet fork, and then I've got the hour wheel, and I got the minute wheel. I got a cannon pinion here. Nice little tiny cannon pinion. And then I've got the minute wheel, like that. And I've got some screws. So these screws here are the screws that are for the pallet fork bridge. Screw 1 and screw 2. And then these screws are all plate screws, and they're all the same, which is nice. So I don't have to worry about the sizing of these screws for the plates, various plates. And what do we got here? A bunch of plate screws. And then I've got 2 case screws. Case screw 1, and they're kind of bigger on the end. The head's bigger on the end. That's a case screw. And then case screw 2. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Case screw 2, and just because, and they're flat on the top. And I always do this just in case I put something in there that escaped me. So that's that. So everything is kind of spread out right now, and I'll have to show you a picture of that. And there are all the parts just sitting there waiting to be installed and oiled and etc. etc. I got my Myers number 58 movement holder where I'm going to install the first plate and start the activity. The first thing I need to do is wind that mainspring back into the barrel. This is a tricky thing. Sometimes it slips, sometimes you got to fix it, sometimes you got to do all sorts of things. So the first thing I need to do though is look at that photo to make sure I have it in the right direction. You can actually do it a different way. You can actually look at the arbor and see where the arbor catches the mainspring, and you know that part of the arbor goes in through the barrel and part of the arbor goes through the cap, and you can do that, but I'm lazy, so I like to take a picture of it and make sure it goes in the right way. I believe this is the picture of the mainspring arbor. I know it is because there seems to be writing on the inside of the barrel, and the other barrel has writing as well, so that's good. So the first thing you need to do is make sure the barrel fits over the top of the device here, and it doesn't. So that's too big of a barrel. So it's a pretty easy solution to unscrew the barrel. Take that out and then go to the next one down. So I look at that, and this next one down should be this one. And I can test that just by putting it over the top right there and then wiggle it around to make sure there's enough give, because you're going to have the, once you wound the spring in, the T part of the spring needs to be on the outside of the barrel, so it's a bit tricky, right? So that is what you got to do. And this, I think this knobby do here, this jobby knobby hickey do hickey, is probably the right size for this. So it'll suffice. It will suffice. So these are other arbors and other barrels and other winding, but this is a good size right here, so I don't need to do any more. All right, this shirt I'm wearing is the 50th anniversary of the Canadian Sea King helicopters coming into Canada. So 1963 to 2018, that's a lot of years these things flew. Beautiful aircraft. The President of the USA flies them, and a whole lot of Canadian pilots fly them as well. So great aircraft. So I've got this really cool clamp here that I bought at, I think I told you guys, Cordon Tools, and it's pretty neat, So I can just clamp that on right here. I'm not too concerned about putting paper on this thing, but I just want it to be tight. I don't want this thing to go anywhere. So it's clamped on nice and tight. And I've already kind of tighten this here to make sure it's the right depth, because as you can see, what you're doing here is you're winding the spring in like that, and at the end you're pushing the spring into the barrel like that. So, and then to wind the spring in, you got to look at your picture again, or you could screw yourself. Now the picture has the spring going this way. So when I look at the spring here, and I just look at how it's turning, it is also turning the same way. So that's great. So it goes in the barrel like that. And then what you need to do is, you know, it's going into the barrel like this. So you need to say, okay, if it goes in like that, right, then it will go onto the spring winder like this, right? So you're kind of doing it all backwards. So what you do is you put that in there, and hopefully the little jobby doohickey grabs the knobby doohickey on the inside of the spring. So there are technical terms for all of this. So now as I wind it in, I'm going to just turn this around so you can see me doing it, right? I have a hard time doing this with a glove on, by the way. So if someone is criticizing me for not having a glove on, well, I washed the crap out of my hands, so there shouldn't be any oil on them right now. So I'm just turning this around until I get the majority of the spring is in. And I know when you get close, it wants to suck the spring right in, right? So you got to watch that carefully, because that will indeed suck the spring in, and you don't want that to happen. So you want the spring to be close, and then you can just push the end of it a bit, like I've just done. And now the spring is kind of set like this. And I'm hoping there's enough spring left over right there to be able to catch the hole in the barrel, and we shall see. So I've got to turn this around to do it, otherwise I'll go blind, Jerry, blind. So I can just fit this over the top, and you edge it, take the barrel and put the barrel side in first and push, and try to align it as good as you can with your eyeball. And then when you get it kind of over like that, you can see whether the spring is aligned, and I can see the spring, the hole poking out here. Now I should be able to push that in. If it doesn't work, then I've got to do it again. So there's no choice. You got to go again at it. There we go. So that's in. Now with any luck, if I look in there, and do I see the knobby on the barrel? Or do I see the T coming into the hole? The answer is no, which means I may have to do this again. So I want to back this out like that, take the spring out, and look where the T is. And the T is way over here. So it's over in the side. So I actually have to take the spring out of the barrel again and try again. This is agonizing, I'm telling you, getting the spring into the barrel properly. It's not easy. So I'm going to do this again a few times, turn off my camera until I get it right. So the other way of doing this is by hand, where you put the spring, make sure that's lined up perfectly, and then you just push the spring and you wind it in like that, right, by hand. Now the old pros used to do this by hand all the time, especially for these the T springs here with the T end, which is a real pain in the butt. So you just kind of do that and walk it in. It's hard to see what I'm doing here, but I'm kind of walking it in. I'd move the camera up closer. I guess I could show you. All right, here's the camera closer. I'm walking it in. I'm trying not to put any pressure on the spring to push it around to make sure that the T stays where it's supposed to be. And I'm just walking it in like this on both sides, the same way I walked it out. Then when I get close, the spring is fit. So the spring is in there now. And if I look really close at this, where the hole is, as you can see, there's the T. So now the T is lined up with the hole. Thank God. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this spring, and then I'm going to put the cap on. So here I've got Bergeron oilers. So I've got the 2847, Bergeron 2847. It gives you some idea of how to oil stuff on the top here. And then I've got a very nice set of Bergeron oil caps here. And this oil cap, the number is 30180. 30180. A lot of fingerprints on these things. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my blue oil. So I always, it's funny, I call that my blue oil, okay? And that would be, what is it? I'll tell you in a second. So what I do is I take this oil here and I just put a little bit on the edge. You only have to do this with old pocket watches because the newer pocket watches do not corrode. There's no rust in the new pocket watches at all. When you're doing this job as well, pay attention to where the T is. It's right there, right? The T. Now, if this is not all the way down with the rim, as if the rim is not free on the edge of this barrel, you can tap that down with your staking set to make sure that it's flush, so that the edge of this, before it hits the T, is flush or lower than the edge of the barrel, because you need to put the cap on now, and the cap has got to go on without interfering at all. So I'm just going to put a little bit of more oil right here. That oil soaks right into the watch. So, and then just clean your oiler off, shut your lid, and away you go. So this is solid stuff here, these oilers. So hunted a long time to get these oilers and finally got a really nice set. So the spring is riding up just a bit, so I'm going to tap that down with my staking set. So I'm using a stake, just a normal stake here. You don't have to have a blank, like not a holeless stake. You just need a stake that goes on the edge here, and you're just going to tap that down. But you should get a block out to do that. So I did decide to go for a much smaller stake here. And what I want to do is tap that down right on the ridge of where that spring is. Now, if that spring doesn't go in the hole properly, and say it's a little bit sticking out too much, then what I'll end up doing is starting all over again. So I'll just tap that down, and I'm hoping that fed it into the slot nicely. Let me look in the back here. Usually doesn't take much to tap that down. Yeah, that's nice there. And there is yeah, that's really good. That's the T on the other side. So let me show you that. You just look around the edges here to make sure there's nothing else I need to tap down. Yeah, so I can see the rim now. So if I look at this, if you look at this really closely here, and you can see the rim, right? I may have to, if this thing doesn't focus properly, there is the T right there, right? And there's the rim. So I want to make sure that this surface right there is below that rim. That's all I'm trying to do. And then I can take the cap, right, for this watch. And there's two holes in the cap. So there's a hole on the side, a smaller, just a gouge, I'll say. I'm not sure what the term would be, but anyways, two gouges. So on the left-hand side, you see the larger one. That's where you put your screwdriver in to work the cap out. And the other side, you've got the smaller one, and that's the one that has to go on top of that T, right? So, but before you can put the cap on, you need to put in the arbor. And sometimes the arbor goes in nicely, and sometimes it doesn't. So pay attention to where the hook is in the arbor, because that hook has got to be lined up properly, because it needs to hook into the edge. So this is a job you tend to do. It's pretty hard to do on camera because you're putting this arbor in here, and sometimes I've used actually a pin vise to help me. But you're putting the arbor in here like this, and you kind of have to push it sideways to get it inside. And at the same time, there's a hole there, and you're trying to work the hole as well. So this one looks like, so you can see the angle right there on the arbor. It's a bit of an angle there, so I need to make sure that that goes in, and there's nothing better than a fingernail to help you here. There you go. So now that's in. So, but it's not hooked. So you need to now hook it. So the way to hook it is to grab a pin vise, right? I've got a big pin vise with a needle in it, so don't mess with me, okay? And that's a big needle. There's my pin vise, and I'm going to open that pin vise up like this, and then I'm going to grab the arbor on the other side. And it's not completely seated in yet. It needs to go down a bit like that. So I just pushed it down with my fingernail, and then I want to grab this carefully, right, and then tighten tighten this up nice and tight like that. So now I've got this sitting on the pin vise, right, nice and tight. And then I'm going to rotate this slowly until the hook is hooking on. And is that hooked on? It looks like it's hooked on, folks. So you can see there the hook is now hooked on. And you shouldn't pull it too hard like this. You don't want the hook to leave, but you have to make sure it's hooked on. So now I'm going to loosen this up very carefully and then take the arbor off, and now it's in a situation now where I can line the cap up. So I can put this on the block where a hole is to make sure the arbor sits in the hole. And now I've got the mainspring. I've already oiled that up. And now I've taken the smaller one of these grooves here, and that's where the T for the mainspring needs to line up. So you're just taking that like that and go in at an angle. Now I pounded that down a bit with a thingamajobby doohickey. But before I put this on, I want to put a little bit of oil on it, okay? And I want that oil just to be on the edge so it slides nicely, because it would be nice if 100% of the strength of the mainspring got transferred to the wheels. So I can put the oils on either side here and a little on the edge here on the top where it sticks up through, and put the oiler. Always clean your oilers on the end and close the oil cap. Put the oiler back like that, put it back in the holder, and now I'm going to see if this works. You see, line that up like this, doing it under the pressure of a camera, and there it is there, and that is not lined up. I'm going to have to pick this up for a second, folks. Sorry about that. I just have to make sure that I have to make sure that the T is perfectly lined up and it's grabbing that hole. So if it doesn't grab the hole, you're screwed. And the best way to do it is actually to come in at an angle with the cap, right? If you don't come in at an angle with the cap, then it might not grab the T. So I want it to come in just a bit of an angle like that. Now I know it's got the T, right? So I'm basically looking at the top to see if it's got the T. Let me just look there, see it's got the T on the top. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure on the cap right now and push that down like that. And then after you've got it pushed down, it's a good idea to take your tweezers and then spread your tweezers out and just put a little pressure on it like that as you just move it around in a circle here like this, and then just move it around like that, and then look at it and make sure that that cap is nicely sitting in there and there's no issues at all, and it looks really good. There's going to be no friction at all. So now I've had my dirty little mugs on it, so I'm going to also oil this side of it as well, and we'll just get some oil and do that. And I just need to apply a little bit of oil on the edge here, and that oil will spread nicely to the other parts of the around the arbor, so the cap is in there nicely, and all's good, all's well that boats well. So if that is in fact a saying. Okay, now I've got this nice mainspring and I want to roll it. So I'm going to put a glove on right now and get rid of fingerprints. Alright, so I got my glove on, and I just want to grab this now, and I want to roll this with a piece of Rodico, and it's to pick up any dirt at all in the teeth of the mainspring. So the mainspring is, when you're talking of gears, it's considered to be number 1. So it's number 1. So the center wheel is actually number 2, not number 1. So, and I'll just clean off the surface here a little bit because I had my fingers on there, although I can't see any prints at all. But I'll just clean that off with the Rodico. Good practice. Make sure everything is good there. And the mainspring was oiled, and I'll just clean off the top as well. with the Rodico. No big deal, NBD. I can't remember if this watch is the one where I have to put in a dial foot. So solder in a dial foot on this watch. I think I may, if I do, that's going to be another video, because that's a bit of a job and you can't do it, you can't rush it. So you saw the use of the hammer, you saw the use of the stake, you saw the use of the staking set, and you saw me basically put the barrel back in place. So that, I think, is it for this video. I'm going to put this up, keep my videos a little bit shorter these days, and then we'll start again with the second part of this reassembly.